Every story leaves something behind. A whisper, a shadow, a question that was never answered. Here, we dig through the forgotten files, the unsolved mysteries, the chilling true crimes, and the horrors people wish had stayed buried. From haunted legends to real-life nightmares, every tale is pulled straight from the horror archives. So turn down the lights, put on your headphones, and step carefully, because once a story enters the horror archives, it never truly leaves.
The first story tonight is called The Sleeping Bag That Was Already Warm. This one came from a viewer who attended a birthday sleepover and noticed something off before the night even started. Something small that turned into something he still can't explain. When I unrolled my sleeping bag on the basement floor, it was warm. Not room temperature warm, body warm, like someone had just been lying in it. I remember pulling my hand back and just staring at it for a second, trying to make sense of it. But I was 12, and it was my best friend Tyler's birthday sleepover, and I didn't want to be the weird kid, so I said nothing. Tyler's basement was one of those half-finished ones. Thin carpet over concrete, wood-paneled walls that stopped about a foot from the ceiling, exposing pink insulation and old pipes. It smelled like dryer sheets and something faintly sour underneath. There were 5 of us down there. Tyler, me, Marcus, Devon, and a kid named Elias who I didn't really know. He went to a different school but lived on Tyler's street. We did the usual stuff. Pizza, video games. Someone brought a 2-liter of Mountain Dew, and we passed it around like it was something illicit. Around midnight, Tyler's mom came down and told us to keep it down. We turned off the lights and kept talking in the dark. That's when Elias said something that made everyone go quiet. He said he'd slept in this basement before. Tyler laughed and said no, he hadn't. Elias didn't argue. He just said okay and rolled over. But something about the way he said it made me uneasy. I kept thinking about my sleeping bag being warm. I hadn't brought it from home. Tyler's mom had pulled them from a hall closet upstairs. 5 identical blue sleeping bags. She'd laid them out before we even arrived. Around 2 in the morning, I woke up to the sound of someone walking. Not on the carpet. Below it, a slow, deliberate creak of weight on old wood, except there was no wood under us. It was concrete. I held still and listened. It came from the far corner of the basement, near the utility closet Tyler's mom said we weren't allowed to open. I looked around. Everyone was asleep, except one sleeping bag was empty. Elias's. I sat up and looked toward the utility closet. The door was open about 6 inches. No light inside, but I could hear breathing, slow and even. Not panicked, comfortable. I whispered Elias's name. The breathing stopped. Then the door slowly closed on its own. I didn't move for the rest of the night. I just lay there with my eyes open, watching that door. In the morning, Elias was back in his sleeping bag like nothing happened. When Tyler's mom made us pancakes, she counted the plates and paused. She asked Tyler if there were 5 friends or 4. Tyler said 5. She looked at Elias for a long moment, then set down the 5th plate without saying anything. After breakfast, I helped Tyler clean up. I asked him how he knew Elias. He said Elias had just shown up the day of the party and said he'd been invited. Tyler assumed his mom had invited him since they were neighbors. I asked Tyler's mom about it a week later. She said she didn't invite anyone. She thought Elias was one of Tyler's school friends. No one on Tyler's street knew a kid named Elias. I described him to a few neighbors. One older woman 2 houses down got very quiet. She said a boy matching that description used to live in Tyler's house before Tyler's family moved in. The family moved away after their son started sleepwalking into the basement and talking to someone in the utility closet. She said the boy's name was Illy. I never slept over at Tyler's again, but sometimes I wonder if my sleeping bag was warm because someone had been waiting in it, waiting for the lights to go off. And I wonder if Elias ever came back for another party he wasn't invited to. And the next story is one that genuinely unsettled me. It's called The Voice in the Tent. It's about a group of girls camping in a backyard and hearing a voice outside the tent that shouldn't have existed. My friend Becca was still talking when I realized her mouth wasn't moving. We were in the tent in her backyard, sleeping bags zipped up, flashlight between us, and I could hear her voice continuing a story about her math teacher. But Becca was asleep. Her eyes were closed. Her breathing was slow and steady, and the voice kept going. This was the summer before 8th grade. Becca lived in a ranch-style house that backed up to a shallow tree line, maybe 30 yards of scrubby oaks before it opened into a soybean field. Her parents had set up a big canvas tent in the yard, and let us camp out. There were 4 of us, me, Becca, her cousin Nia, and our friend Harper. The tent was close enough to the house that we could see the porch light through the fabric, and far enough that it felt like we were actually outside. The voice sounded exactly like Becca. Same rhythm, same little laugh she does when she's about to say something mean in a funny way. It was telling a story about a test she failed, and it was detailed, specific, like real memories. I elbowed Nia, who was next to me. She woke up and I put my finger to my lips. We both listened. The voice was coming from outside the tent, not far, maybe 5 or 6 feet from the back wall. Nia's face changed. She mouthed the words, "That's not Becca." I nodded. The voice paused for a moment, like it was waiting for a response. When neither of us said anything, it laughed. Becca's exact laugh. Then it said my name. It said, "Hey, are you still awake?" I didn't answer. My throat had closed. Nia slowly reached over and shook Harper awake. Harper started to mumble, and Nia clamped a hand over her mouth. The 3 of us sat in the dark, listening to something outside our tent speak in our friend's voice. Then it changed. The voice shifted. It became Nia's voice. It said, "I think someone's outside." It said it in exactly the way Nia had whispered it to me moments before, like it had heard her, like it was repeating what she said to see how it sounded. Harper started crying, quietly but enough that the voice stopped. Silence, 10 seconds, 20, then footsteps, not walking away, walking along the side of the tent. Slowly, we could see the faintest shadow moving across the canvas, lit by the porch light. It was tall, too tall. The shape didn't look like a person standing upright. It looked like a person bent forward at the waist, with their arms hanging. It stopped at the tent's zippered door. I woke up Becca. She was disoriented. I told her we needed to go inside. She asked why. I told her someone was outside the tent. She unzipped the door before I could stop her. Nothing. The yard was empty. The porch light was on. The back door was 15 feet away. We ran. All 4 of us, sleeping bags abandoned. We locked the back door and I looked out the kitchen window at the tent. The tent flap was moving, opening and closing slowly, like someone was stepping inside. In the morning, Becca's dad went out to pack up the tent. He said everything was fine, except the sleeping bags were rearranged. All 4 of them were unzipped and laid flat, side by side, like someone had been lying on top of each one. And in the dirt beside the tent, there were footprints. Bare feet, but the toes were too long. Each print had what looked like 6 toes, and they circled the tent in a complete loop, over and over dozens of times, like whatever it was had been walking around us all night. Becca's family took the tent down and never put it back up. She told me later that her dog wouldn't go near that part of the yard anymore. It would walk to a certain point and just stop, staring at the tree line and growling. I still hear Becca's voice sometimes when I'm falling asleep. That exact cadence, telling me a story I didn't ask to hear. And this 3rd story is called The Window We Never Opened. It takes place in an old Victorian house and involves a detail about a handprint that should not have been there, especially not on the inside. The handprint on the inside of the window was too small to belong to any of us. That was the first thing I noticed when I woke up at Rachel's house the morning after our sleepover. A child's handprint, fingers splayed, pressed against the glass from the inside. But there were no children in Rachel's house. She was an only child, and both her parents were in their 50s. Rachel lived in a Victorian that had been in her family for 3 generations. The kind of house with a turret room and radiators that clanked all night in hallways that were slightly too narrow. We were sleeping in the upstairs guest room, the one at the end of the hall with the window that looked out over the side yard. There were 3 of us, me, Rachel, and our friend June. We were 16. The night before had been normal. We watched movies on Rachel's laptop, ate too much candy, talked about school. The guest room had a double bed and a pull-out, and I took the pull-out by the window. I remember closing the curtains before bed. I remember the window being clean, but at around 3 in the morning, I woke up because I was cold. Really cold. The kind of cold that sits on your chest. I opened my eyes and the curtains were open. I hadn't opened them, and the window was cracked about 2 inches. I got up to close it, and that's when I saw the handprint on the glass. Small, maybe a 4-year-old's hand, and it was on the inside of a 2nd-floor window. I closed the window and locked it, pulled the curtains shut, Got back in bed, told myself Rachel must have opened it for air, but I couldn't sleep because the room smelled different. It had smelled like Rachel's vanilla candle before. Now it smelled like damp soil, cold, wet dirt, like someone had brought the outside in. I lay there staring at the ceiling and I heard it. A faint tapping, not on the window, inside the wall. Tap, 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 like small knuckles rapping on the plaster from within. It moved. It started near the window and traveled along the wall toward the headboard of Rachel's bed. I whispered Rachel's name. She didn't wake up. June didn't either. The tapping stopped when I spoke and then resumed faster. I turned on my phone flashlight and pointed it at the wall. Nothing, just old wallpaper with a faded floral pattern. But as I scanned the light along the wall, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. There was a seam in the wallpaper, rectangular, about 3 feet high and 2 feet wide, like a door that had been papered over. The tapping was coming from behind it. I didn't touch it. I didn't go near it. I sat on the pullout with my light on until the sun came up. In the morning, I showed Rachel the handprint. She went pale. She told me she'd seen handprints before, but only on the outside, never on the inside. I told her about the seam in the wallpaper. She said that was the old dumbwaiter shaft. It ran from the kitchen to the second floor. It had been sealed up in the 70s after her uncle fell into it as a child. I asked if her uncle was okay. Rachel looked at me and said he wasn't. He fell 2 stories into the basement and died. He was 4 years old. I asked why her family still lived there. She said they had nowhere else to go. Then she said something that made my skin crawl. She said the handprints started showing up the year her grandmother died, like something was keeping her grandmother company, and once she was gone, it started looking for someone else. I measured the handprint before we cleaned it off. It matched the size of a 4-year-old's hand exactly. I've been to Rachel's house twice since then. Both times, I found excuses not to sleep in that guest room. The last time I visited, Rachel mentioned casually that she'd started hearing tapping in her own bedroom. She said it didn't bother her anymore. That bothered me more than anything else. And story number 4 is called The Kid Who Wasn't Invited Back. This one involves a Polaroid photo and something in the image that changed over time. I had to read this one twice because the ending genuinely shook me. The Polaroid we took at midnight had 7 people in it. There were only 6 of us at the sleepover. I've looked at that photo probably 100 times since then, and I still can't figure out who the 7th person is. They're standing in the back between Danny and Kyle, slightly out of focus, smiling. No one remembers them being there. No one knows who they are. This was at my house. I was 14, and my parents let me have a big sleepover for the end of the school year. 6 friends, all crammed into our living room with sleeping bags and pillows, and a stack of rented DVDs. My house was a split level in a suburban neighborhood in Ohio. Nothing remarkable about it. Beige carpet, popcorn ceilings, a sliding glass door to the backyard. We took the photo around midnight because Danny had found my mom's old Polaroid camera and wanted to use it. We all squeezed together on the couch, and Danny held the camera out and snapped it. The flash blinded us for a second. When the photo developed, we passed it around and everyone laughed at how bad they looked. I didn't notice the 7th person until the next morning. I was looking at the photo while eating cereal and I counted the heads. 7. I counted my friends who had been there. Danny, Kyle, Marcus, Trevor, Jalen, and Sam. 6. Plus me behind the camera, but I was behind the camera. I wasn't in the photo, so 6 people should have been in it. There were 7. The 7th person was standing between Danny and Kyle. They were about our age, wearing a plain white t-shirt. Their face was slightly blurred, like they had moved right as the flash went off. But they were smiling. Wide, too wide for a blurry face. I showed Danny. He stared at it for a long time and then said, "That's weird." That was it. Like his brain wouldn't let him engage with it. I showed everyone else. Same reaction. Trevor said it was probably a double exposure. Marcus said someone must have been standing behind us, but we were against a wall. There was no behind us. I put the photo in my desk drawer and tried to forget about it. 2 weeks later, I pulled it out again. The 7th person had moved. I know how that sounds, but their position had changed. Before, they were between Danny and Kyle. Now they were between Kyle and Marcus. Same blurry face, same white shirt, same smile, but shifted one person to the right. I called Danny and told him. He said I was remembering wrong. I wasn't. I checked the photo every few days after that. Each time the figure had shifted, one person over, moving through the group photo like they were walking behind everyone in slow motion. After a month, they were at the edge of the frame next to Sam, and now their face was slightly less blurry. I could make out features, dark eyes, thin lips stretched too far. Then they were gone. The next time I looked, the photo had 6 people in it. Normal, like nothing had happened. I should have felt relieved. I didn't, because the morning after the figure disappeared from the photo, Sam called me. He was upset. He said he'd woken up in the middle of the night and someone was standing in his bedroom doorway. A kid about our age in a white t-shirt, just standing there smiling. Sam turned on his light and no one was there, but his window was open. He never sleeps with his window open. Sam's family moved that summer. Not because of that officially. His dad got a job transfer, but Sam told me privately that things kept happening in his room. Things moved. His closet door would be open when he'd closed it, and one night he woke up to the feeling of someone sitting on the edge of his bed, and when he looked, the mattress was compressed like someone was there, but the space was empty. I still have the Polaroid. 6 people, normal, but if I look at it under certain light, at certain angles, I can see the faintest outline of a 7th figure. Not between anyone anymore. Behind the camera, where I was standing. I keep the photo face down now. I don't look at it anymore. But sometimes I think about taking a new photo of myself, just to check. I haven't worked up the nerve. And this last story is the one that stayed with me the longest. It's called The Rules on the Fridge, and it's about a sleepover at a house that came with instructions, the kind of instructions you don't ignore. There was a list of rules taped to the refrigerator when we got to Aiden's house, and none of them made sense. Do not open the basement door after 9 p.m. Do not answer if someone knocks from inside the hallway closet. If the porch light turns off, do not look out the windows. Do not acknowledge the girl on the stairs. Aiden saw us reading them and ripped the list down. He said his little sister made them up for a school project. He said it was stupid. He threw it in the trash and told us to pick a movie. This was junior year. There were 4 of us. Me, Aiden, Cooper, and Leo. Aiden's parents were out of town for the weekend, and he'd invited us to stay over. His house was a 2-story colonial on a dead-end street that backed up to state forest. The nearest neighbor was maybe a quarter mile away. The house was old, and it sounded old. Every surface creaked. The walls ticked when the heat kicked on. We settled into the living room, put on a horror movie which felt ironic later. Around 10, Cooper went to the kitchen for drinks and came back looking uncomfortable. He said the basement door was open. Aiden said it was always open. Cooper said no, it was closed when we got here. He'd noticed because of the rules. Aiden went and closed it. He came back and said it was nothing. At 11, we heard a knock. A single knock from the hallway closet. Everyone heard it. We all looked at each other. Leo laughed nervously and said it was the house settling. Then it knocked again. 3 times, slow and deliberate. Knock, knock, knock. Aiden got up and opened the closet. Coats, shoes, nothing else. He closed it and said, "See, nothing." But I noticed his hands were shaking. Around midnight, the porch light turned off. I know because the living room had a large front window and the porch light cast a glow across the ceiling. When it went off, the room got noticeably darker. Cooper stood up to check and Aiden grabbed his arm. Hard, he said, "Don't look out the window." His voice was different, not casual anymore. Tight, like he was reciting something he'd been told. Cooper sat back down. No one said anything for a minute. Then Leo asked Aiden what was really going on with the list. Aiden was quiet for a long time. Then he said his sister didn't write it. His mom did. She taped it to the fridge before they left, and she'd made Aiden memorize it. He said his mom told him the rules had been in the family since they moved into the house 6 years ago. She said the first winter they lived there, Aiden's dad saw a girl sitting on the stairs one night. He spoke to her, asked her who she was. The next morning, he woke up in the basement with no memory of how he got there. He had scratches running down both forearms like someone had dragged him by the wrists. After that, they established the rules. I asked Aiden why he'd invited us over if the house had rules like that. He looked at me and said, "Because it's worse when you're alone." Around 2 in the morning, I woke up on the living room floor and I needed to use the bathroom. The upstairs bathroom was at the end of the hall past the staircase. I walked halfway up the stairs and stopped. There was a girl sitting on the top step. She was maybe 8 or 9, wearing a nightgown that looked too old for the era. Not antique costume old, genuinely worn, yellowed. Her hair was dark and hung over her face. She was sitting perfectly still with her hands folded in her lap. I remembered the rule. Do not acknowledge the girl on the stairs. I stood there for what felt like 5 minutes. I didn't speak. I didn't move. I didn't look directly at her. I kept my eyes on the wall just to her left, using my peripheral vision. She turned her head toward me, slowly. I could feel her looking at me even though I wasn't looking at her. The air got cold, not gradually, instantly, like opening a freezer. Then she spoke. She said, "You're new." I didn't respond. My entire body was telling me to run, to scream, to do anything. I didn't. I stood still and I did not acknowledge her. She stood up. She was taller than an 8-year-old should be. The proportions were wrong. Her arms were too long. She took one step down toward me, and I heard the wood groan under weight that sounded far too heavy for a child. Then the porch light came back on. I don't know why. It flooded through the windows and lit up the staircase, and she was gone. Not walked away. Gone. The step where she'd been standing was covered in frost, a perfect footprint of bare toes in thin white ice. I went back to the living room and I didn't use the bathroom. I lay down next to Cooper and I didn't sleep. In the morning, I found the list in the trash and smoothed it out. There were 5 rules. The night before, I'd only seen 4. The 5th one was at the bottom, written in different handwriting. Shakier, like it had been added later. It said, "If she speaks to you, you are already chosen. Leave the house before the next night." I showed it to Aiden. He read it and went completely white. He said that line wasn't there before. His mom's list only had 4 rules. I left that morning. I begged everyone else to leave too. Cooper and Leo did. Aiden said he couldn't. It was his house. Aiden missed school that Monday and Tuesday. He came back on Wednesday and he looked different. Thinner, darker under the eyes. When I asked him what happened, he said he didn't want to talk about it. But I noticed something that I never brought up to him. On his forearms, visible just below his sleeves, there were long, thin scratches, running from his elbows to his wrists, like someone had grabbed him and pulled, just like his dad.
And that's where tonight's file closes, but the archives are far from empty. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe and join us as we uncover more horrors, mysteries, and true crimes hidden in the horror archives. Until next time, keep the lights low, keep listening, because you never know what story we'll uncover next.